So the second thing that I wanted to chat about is a American historical holiday that just happened this week. Have any of you heard of Juneteenth? Americans, non-Americans, everyone in between. Did you ever learn about Juneteenth in school, in college? Did you hear about it on social media this week, potentially? Nope. All right. You know of it because of your travels and friends you made? Mm-hmm. You first learned about Juneteenth yesterday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not too uncommon. So I never learned about Juneteenth when I was in school. Granted, I'm not gonna go directly to the, oh, it's because schooling is racist sort of idea. I think it's more about potentially that traditionally elementary schools, middle schools, high schools got out of school before June 19th. So that might be why. This is the first year you ever heard of it. 1-step stamp apology, or the full 3-step version. I messed up. I'll do my best to not do it again. What can I do to heal it? Yeah, that's the best way to apologize, yeah. Not everyone really knows how to do that. Not everyone knows how to apologize correctly. Sometimes apologies are done to make the person who did something wrong feel better, rather than trying to right things with the person who was harmed. So that needs to be looked at properly. Yeah, an LGBT friend of yours posted something on Facebook about Juneteenth. Really? That's great. So, this Wednesday, so 2 days ago, Juneteenth, is a day that commemorates the full legal end to slavery in the United States. So obviously, we have the Emancipation Proclamation, right? And people assume that means, like, that's fully the end of slavery. Like, oh, that was, like, a million years ago, right? Yeah, 1863. That's not fully correct, because it took until Texas abolished slavery 2 years later, June 19th, 1865, for it to be fully abolished. But we still have Jim Crow laws. We still have people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and Tupac Shakur and just so many different people who were fighting against inequality. So this is my little tweet about it when it on June 19th. So
the Emancipation Proclamation declared that.
Calm down, history.com. All right, I got it. So, hi Glam, how you doing, buddy? Good to see ya. Oh my goodness, if you don't know Glam, fellow New York City broadcaster, super chill and fun individual, has these crazy cool emotes that I got gifted earlier this month. I love them so much. Look at these. My friend Pedro. How is my friend Pedro? I've heard good. For the most part, people like it. But others say that it's the advertising was better than the game itself. Yeah, they are really cool, right? Well, I apologize, so you need to let it go. Absolutely not. No. An apology is not the end-all, be-all of forgiving or forgetting about a situation. An apology is you requesting the other person forgive you, not the other way around. And sometimes you do something that's so grievous to another human being or a group of people that it can't really be forgiven. Because being forgiven, your apology being accepted is like, yo, you messed up, you didn't mean to do it, or, you know, it was your organization, but it was 50 years ago, and it's not a representation of the people you are now and the people who work in this organization now, and you are publicly denouncing the actions of your organization from 50 years ago. And you will work towards making sure that never happens again by changing policies and culture and so on. That's why those like big historical apologies are important. But if someone like makes a racist or sexist comment and they do it consistently, and then finally it kind of blows up and people are like, yeah, look at the stuff that they said in these private messages, and yeah, they said it 3 years ago and 3 weeks ago, and it's like, oh my goodness, okay, yeah, this person probably has not learned their lesson, and they're just publicly apologizing to try to get people to stop hanging out and attacking them. Hi, Blaster, how are you? It is fun, you just don't know for how long. Let's see. When is that? It's on Wednesday. Where is it? Let me see. I actually might go to this. That's so far away. It's near Greenwich, though. That's cool. Yeah, Glam, if you're going, I'll probably go. Forgive but not forget. Yeah, sometimes don't forgive and don't forget either. Forgiveness doesn't mean that things are back to normal. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, there's just some things you can't forgive in another person. What they've done and all that. It is fun, you just don't know for how long. Okay. Makes sense. I feel like I knew this was happening. I did. Oh yeah, I posted it yesterday. In the New York City streamer meetup group. Discord. Okay. So Juneteenth, you're like, yo, okay, Jess, what is it? Tell me about it. It's a holiday that commemorates marking the effective end of slavery as accepted law in the United States. On June 19th, 1865, 2 months after the surrender of Confederate General Robert E. Lee at the courthouse in Virginia, Union General Gordon Granger and approximately 1,800 federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, to take control of the state and enforce the Emancipation Proclamation. Granger read General Orders No. 3, which declared in part, "The people of Texas are informed that in accordance with Proclamation of the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. Juneteenth, short for June 19th, is a holiday that commemorates this day, which is the effective end of slavery officially." In reality, the Emancipation Proclamation didn't instantly free slaves. It wasn't that it was signed into law and slaves were like, yo, I can go now. It didn't work that easily or that wonderfully, unfortunately, because it only applied to places that were already under, Confederate control, and not to slave-holding border states or rebellion areas that were already under Union control. And Northern troops advanced into the Confederate South, and slaves fled behind the Union lines because of that. So it was very messy, and it took a really long time to officially go through. So in Texas, slavery was relatively unaffected because the states experienced no large fighting or significant presence of any of the Northern troops. Many slave owners from outside the Lone Star State, Texas, viewed it as a safe haven and moved there with their slaves. After the war came to a close in the spring of 1865, General Granger's arrival in Galveston that June signaled the freedom for over 250,000 slaves that were in Texas. And obviously, emancipation didn't happen overnight for everyone, and some slave owners withheld information until harvest season after it finished. Celebrations broke out, and Juneteenth was born. And finally, also that December, slavery in America was formally abolished with the adoption of the 13th Amendment. And in the ensuing decades, Juneteenth commemorates commemorations feature different types of music, barbecue, prayer services, and other activities that focus on the history and their traditions that have come all the way through from those times. So let's see here. In 2019, the House Committee on the Judiciary held a hearing regarding reparations for Black Americans. This is something that comes up quite often, and is a huge point of contention for a lot of different people. This committee discussed H.R. 40, 2019, a legislation introduced by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, a Democrat in Texas, to acknowledge slavery in the United States and to make amendments. The bill introduces features such as establishing a commission to research possibility of a national apology and a proposal for reparations of Black Americans. So basically, this bill is a prelude to a prelude of potentially formally apologizing. Of course, Mitch McDonnell, who's a turtle, rejected reparations, arguing the legacy of Jim Crow laws continues to marginalize Black Americans today. There's wealth disparity between Black and white families, higher mortality rates for Black women giving birth, and so on. And these are things that need to be researched and discussed and try to find a better balance of equality and making those numbers close to zero. Decades of Jim Crow laws created state-sponsored structures that perpetuated the marginalization of Black Americans. Discriminatory institutions in the areas of banking and housing continue to trap Black Americans, even to this day, in cycles of poverty. The impact of these compounding racist practices have manifested in a racial wealth gap, harsher criminal punishments for Black Americans, and significantly worse health care for communities of color, among plenty of other inequities. So let's see. In 2017, Tom Jacobs reported on a study that traced the ongoing effects of county-level slavery in 1860. The research found that economic equality in such counties still continues. That is bonkers. Hi, Opti. How are you, hun? Good to see you. By the way, Blaster is my dad. We've been playing a little bit of Dead by Daylight on stream with him. Go check out his highlights and clips, and you can see how Bala surviving with family is. And then we also have Optimistic Gamer, who has been a longtime friend of mine ever since college. He does a lot of mythological discussion and awareness, as well as mental health awareness. Plays a whole gamut of indie games, AAAs, discussions, and so on. Definitely go give him some love if you like the kind of things we do over here, because it's very similar. Let's see. So, 2 European researchers find a link between county-level slavery in 1860 and economic inequality today. This study finds that in economic terms, those U.S. counties that in the past exhibited a higher slave share of population turned out to still be more unequal in present day. The study, published by the European Economic Review, used a sample of U.S. counties to investigate the long-term impact of slavery on economic inequality. The researchers examined counties in 42 states, including the 15 slave states, as a starting point for the share of slaves over population in the year of 1860. Then they compared those figures with current-day economic inequality in those same counties. we found that slavery has a positive and significant effect. When they mean positive, they mean an actual effect, not like a good effect, by the way, when you talk about statistics and so on. A significant effect on overall inequality. Further digging into the numbers reveals that this finding is driven entirely by racial inequality. No significant level of effect of slavery on equality within the races. So what's driving this continued correlation? They cite the persistence of a racial gap in education, the legacy of slavery, and the local nature of education provision and funding. The property tax is the main source of funding for many locations and counties, and thus for public educational support. But because of separate but equal education policies applied in southern states until 1960s, it is ridiculous, 100 years later. Local officers diverted state funds for blacks to finance education for whites in different counties and areas. As a result, they can impose a lower property tax and spend less on education in the white neighborhoods compared to the black ones. Like, just that by itself is absolutely ludicrous. Hi, Rodolphus. Hi, Echo. How are you doing, friends? Good to see you. Even after legally mandated school segregation was abolished, those counties still kept a lower tax rate, the researchers reported, with negative effects on public schooling and funding, and therefore education for blacks. While this is not the sole reason, the basic conclusion is very clear. The past use of slave labor and Jim Crow laws persistently affect current inequality, and sadly this legacy continues on. Oh, man. Alright, I'm gonna post this in, I guess World News makes sense? It is really upsetting. It's frustrating. It's like, goddamn, like, what do we do? Part of it is being aware of it. Working towards fixing it when you can. I'm sorry it's upsetting. Hi, Mike. How you doing? Echo, we just talked about a little bit more of the history of Stonewall at the beginning of the stream. You want to grab people and shake them and say what's wrong with them? Yeah. That's a great way to look at it, Mike. Yep, awareness and abolishing of your ignorance is